Hey y'all, so it is March the 14th. Our projected last frost date is supposed to be March 15th. I've looked at the weather. There's a few days next week that it drops down into the 40s, which is a little bit worrisome to me. We can always have a frost up until Easter because remember your projected last frost date means that your last frost can be 2 weeks before your projected last frost date or 2 weeks after. So we still technically have 2 more weeks that we can get a frost, but looking at the 10-day forecast, there's a few days that it dips down into the 40s, but pretty much the highs are 70s and 80s. So I think that I'm going to be fine to go ahead and start some of my squash seeds. I'm not going to transplant out my tomatoes or my peppers. If it dips down and we get one of those frosts, the frost damage our tomatoes and peppers. So I'm not putting my tomatoes and my peppers out in my garden because I started those in January. Those are a labor of love and I have nurtured them along up until this point because you start them 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. And I'm not willing to risk all of that work, putting them out in the garden, not being able to cover them with frost cloth and then possibly getting damaged or killed. Also, the lower dips in temperature sometimes tend to make them not grow as fast and stunt the growth of them. If I were to put them out in my garden and they got damaged, each of those plants to replace would cost me $5.98 to go buy at Lowe's. And so to me, that would just be a really expensive mistake. Now, putting a seed out into the garden costs me cents. And so if these little seedlings get up, they get damaged by frost, it's not as big of a loss, so I'm willing to risk it. This year, I am using the same raised beds that I've used every year. This is going to be my squash, zucchini, and cucumber bed. My husband helped me add these trellises down the middle. They're just cattle panels that we have, and it's down the middle. And then I have the addition of the cattle panel trellis arch here in the middle. My plan is to put the birdhouse gourds and loofahs on the cattle panel arch, but I can't decide if I want to I usually do one or the other. Last year I did loofah and they got damaged. The vines got damaged in the hurricane, so I never got to harvest any loofahs off of it. But I really think I want to do birdhouse gourds this year because the kids love harvesting those gourds at the end of the season, and it gives us something to decorate over the winter and cut the little hole in, empty the seeds out, and put out for the birds. So we're going to get to planting these. I'm going to wet the soil down before I put my seeds in. The cottage garden container that we started last time, it has a few things coming up, and I'm not sure if you can see, these are the zinnias that we planted coming up over here. And then right here is a borage. Down here, it's teeny tiny, and I'm not even sure if y'all can see it on camera, are the little alyssum that we started. And we're still waiting on that squash that's right here to come up. I think I have dirt on my forehead. Anyway, it's bound to get more dirt before the end of all of this. So these seeds are starting to come up. I said yesterday in a post that they hadn't come up yet, so I didn't know if the temperatures were right, but these did pop through last night. So I'm going to go ahead and start some of my squash seeds. Like I said, if we dip down and it kills these little squash, it's just a couple cent, not a $5.98 plant that I have damaged. So let's get into planting this bed, and I'll kind of go through with what I'm planting and how I'm planting it. Okay, so the first thing that I do before I start putting any seeds into the ground is I go through and water the top layer of the soil. It is kind of dry, and so I just want the top layer to be nice and moist so that when I put the seeds in, there's no shifting of seeds when I come back and water it once I've put them in the ground. Okay, so I'm going to look at my garden plan. I tend to not stick to what I had originally planned, and I've actually already changed this from when I put it on paper. So I had like alternating squash and zucchini, and I've decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put squash down this one side, and on the inside I'm going to put the cucumbers. So let's do the cucumbers first since they are the closest thing to the trellis, and then we'll get into the squash. So I'm doing the same cucumbers that I did last year. I'm doing the Parisian pickling cucumber and the national pickling cucumber and the homemade pickles cucumber. And I'm just going to put 2 plants of each kind down this trellis. So we're going to start with the homemade pickles. I don't need a ton of cucumbers this year because we have a bunch of sweet pickles left from last year. So I really just need enough cucumbers to make dill pickles this year. So I did homemade pickles. And next I'm going to do the national pickling cucumber. And again, I'm just going to do 2 of those. I'm putting 2 seeds per hole just in case one of them doesn't sprout. And then next I will do the Parisian pickling cucumber. And I'm going to take pictures in between that where I plant these. As I plant these, I'm going to take pictures in between as I plant these so that I know I can look back at the pictures and know where I planted each one, because I tend to forget as the season goes on which plant was where. So I think if I take pictures this year, I'll be able to look back at pictures and say, that's what I planted there. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to plant down this trellis are going to be my winter squash. I'm going to plant the butternut squash, the Waltham butternut squash. And then I got this mashed potatoes winter squash. I've never tried it before, but I'm going to grow it as well. I'm going to do spaghetti squash, and I'm going to do 2 plants each of those. So first I'm doing the spaghetti squash. And again, I'm just going to lay down the package and take a picture of it again so that I don't forget. And then I'm going to do these mashed potato squash. This was one of the cool seed packets that I got from Botanical Interest. I'm not as impressed with the amount of seeds that you get from them, but I decided to try a couple varieties from them anyway. And then this is going to be where I plant the butternut squash. Oops. And I have a little bit more room, so I'm going to actually plant I had some little leaf pickling cucumbers that I wasn't going to plant, but since I have some extra room down here on the end, I'm going to plant 2 of those plants down here on the end. Actually, I'm probably going to plant a couple more than 2 because these didn't get very big last year. Doesn't say how long the vines get, but I remember the vines not getting very long last year. So in the front of this bed, I am going to plant all of my yellow summer squash. So I'm planting the gold prize, the chiffon, and the typical crookneck. I'm just going to do 2 plants of each of these, and in between each variety, I'm going to put a bush marigold that'll stay lower. So let's get to planting them. I've never grown the gold prize or the chiffon squash before, so the gold prize is one that I got in one of the Hoss. I actually want to move that view down. Ooh. The gold prize is one that I got in the Hoss Seed of the Month. So it'll be fun to try something new. Then I'm just going to stick a couple marigold seeds down between them. And these are the bush marigolds that I saved from my garden. Sure. The next one that I'm going to do is going to be the chiffon. And again, I'm just cutting marigolds in between. And last but not least, I'm going to do the yellow crookneck down here on the end. Okay, so back here we have the cucumbers planted, and up here we have the squash and the marigolds planted. So in between here, I'm just going to sow a borage seed every couple of feet because, like I said, it's good for pollinators. It's a good companion plant for squash and cucumbers. So we're just going to sow a couple borage seeds throughout this bed. And I need to order more borage seeds. I got those from Dollar Seed and they have lasted me like forever. They give you a ton of seeds for $1 if you've never used Dollar Seed. I just don't like that you can't like select varieties from them. Okay, now we're going to move to the other side. Okay, this is the other side of that cattle panel trellis. I don't know what I'm going to do in the back over here because technically the cucumbers are planted right here. So I might just go down again and put borage seeds. I'll decide by the end of the video. But this side of the bed is going to be the zucchini. And I have 4 varieties of zucchini that I'm going to plant on this side. We have the green machine. We have the cocozelle, which I wasn't super impressed with last year. So we'll see if I have better luck this year. The golden zucchini and the costata romanesco. I'm going to plant 2 of the green machine, but the rest of them, I'm just going to plant 1 plant. And in between each of these, I'm going to do like I did on the other side and put bush marigolds. And I lied. To make it an even number, I have to plant 3 of the green machines. So. All right, the green machines are down. So next I'm going to plant a cocozelle. And they are falling out the bottom. And then I'm going to do a costata romanesco. And because of this arch trellis right here and me planting whatever I'm going to plant on the arch trellis, birdhouse gourds or leafas, I haven't decided. I'm not going to put any squash past this. I am going to go ahead and put those borage, just a couple of them down the back. I might come in and mix some zinnias. That might look pretty neat. And I have a ton of zinnia seeds, so that might be what I end up adding in. I like the overflowed cottage garden look in these raised beds, so you'll see me absolutely overstuff these beds, which means that they demand a lot of water. But that's not a big deal. So I'm just going to go in and put some borage seeds here and there. Okay, so that is what I am planting in my squash and zucchini bed. I'm going to go ahead and water this in, and hopefully in about a week, everything has popped up. Hopefully we haven't had any unexpected frost, no more lower temp drops, and hopefully we're on our way to our spring garden. If it gets messed up, we'll just plant again.